when I was just a little one. The other elves saw me as a dog. But I always knew that I was a buck. I chose the name Terrestrius.
It's a strong name.
Hey, Viren isn't transphobic. That's neat. Still a bad guy, though. As you can guess from the video title, I did not like Season 4 of Dragon Prince. There are a few things this season does that just aren't that well written. I had the pleasure of watching this season with my friend, and being able to sit around and joke about what we were seeing made it a lot more bearable. I don't know if I would have been able to finish it had I been watching it on my own. The best way that I could describe this season is that it's basically just setup, much like Season 1. But if this were Season 1 of the show, I probably would not have kept watching after. Does that make sense? Let's try to make it make sense. This is a big one for me. I understand that this show is primarily for kids, but until this point, the show had been written in a way that appeals to multiple demographics. The show got more and more mature with each season, but this one is a major step back. This is a show where people have been shot by arrows, impaled, burned alive, souls absorbed, murdered. You can't have this and also make your characters do the floss. How has the season just come out and already the jokes feel so aged? Getting huge tonal dissonance here. It's strange because they clearly want to have a show that is suited to both children and adults. They've done it before, remember? And yet, it feels like the showrunners forgot that children can handle real emotions. I'm not saying the show can't be silly. Last Airbender had jokes all the time. The difference is knowing time and place. The problem with this season is that it's falling back on jokes too often when certain scenes should be delivered with seriousness and gravitas. In Season 3, Ezran had a whole arc dedicated to becoming a wise ruler despite his young age, and in Season 4, he's appointing a baker to office and using stand-up comedy for diplomacy. Claudia starts off the season in tears over the horrible things she had to do in order to bring her father back to life, and then in the very next episode, we get a fart joke that lasts far longer than welcome. In the same episode where Soren is doing his stand-up comedy routine and the baker is getting dapped up for his delicious pastries, we also get this heartfelt monologue while this man gets murdered. I went back and rewatched the previous seasons, and the others did not suffer from this much tonal dissonance, at least certainly not this much. You can even see the shift in the characters, and Soren is the worst offender of this. Soren suffers from heavy Flanderization this season. If you don't know what that means, let me explain. Flanderization is the process through which fictional characters' essential traits are exaggerated over the course of a serial work. Soren is a character with high emotional intelligence and is also quite perceptive in reading the room. He gets completely flanderized and loses all the brain cells he once had to exemplify his character as a himbo and goofball. When he was once a whole person, he's now just a caricature of his previous self. Remember when I was talking about tone? I suddenly started talking about the character assassination of Soren. That's because I poorly wrote this script. That's because of this. This is what Season 4 is suffering from. What is the season called? Mystery of Erebos? Erebos. You know, this guy. He gets 2 minutes of screen time in episode 4. That's it. Sure, you could argue that this is set up as the first season of this whole new arc surrounding Erebos. However, this is bad writing. It is Season 4 of what is supposed to be a 7-season series. We are more than halfway through the whole show. It feels out of place to have a whole season this far in as setup. And even if it is supposed to be that, it doesn't even do that well. It makes such poor use of its runtime. Let's recap what happened in Season 1 versus Season 4. In Season 1, Moonelves plot an assassination against Harrow, the king of Catullus, and his sons, the princes Callum and Ezran, in retaliation for the deaths of the Dragon King and the Dragon Prince. However, it turns out that the Dragon Prince is still alive, as an egg, so Rayla, one of the Moon Elf assassins, defect to assist Callum and Ezran in bringing the egg back to its mother. While Callum and Ezran and Rayla make this journey, they're constantly on the run from Catullus forces who want to bring them home and kill their supposed captor. All the while, Viren is consolidating power in Catullus after the death of Harrow. In Season 4, Ezran, king of Catullus, leaves the throne empty with Callum, Soren, and Rayla to speak with Rex Igneous. It does not go well. Viren is brought back to life by Claudia and they manage to steal the map from Rex Igneous. Sun Elf culture is belittled by an architect. Karam tries to seize power from Janai. Yeah, that's all that happened in season 4, and it used just as much time as every other season to do that. And somehow, they couldn't find the time to fit why Rayla disappeared for 2 years in the show. We don't get more explanation than Rayla saying that she looked for Viren for 2 years and couldn't find him, so she gave up. Fortunately for me, I watched the first episode on YouTube, where it was released a day earlier than the rest of the season on Netflix. In the comments section, someone gave context as to why Rayla was gone, pointing out this letter that Rayla wrote that is only accessible on the Dragon Prince official website. I imagine most people saw the season in its entirety on Netflix, so they would not have this context at all. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think that you should have to go to their website to get the full experience of the show. I don't think it's anyone's instinct to visit a franchise's official website when they're watching a show. Let's pretend like this isn't an issue for a moment. Even with this additional context, we still don't get any more explanation than she just gave up because it took too long. Also, what is this thing? We don't get much explanation on that either. For the rest of the season, Callum and Rayla have communication issues, which is such a huge regression from the last seasons of development between them. Regression is not always bad, but it sure feels bad when the show treats their relationship as an afterthought after spending so much time getting to where they were. It seems that the writers always wanted the time skip and didn't know what to do with their relationship in that time, so they opted to break them up instead. This is very reminiscent of last season of How I Met Your Mother, that spent the entirety of its runtime on Robin and Barney's wedding, only to have them separated in the very last episode in the time skip. So Rayla returns, and Callum is still hurt by her absence. And then for the rest of the season, they never talk about it. This feels particularly strange and artificial because neither of these characters have been particularly shy about sharing their feelings. But suddenly this season, they've lost that maturity. It's not as if they did not have the time to talk to each other. In fact, most of the season, the cast sort of meander and the plot has so much padding to it. For example, this scene where Rayla fails to notice that Soren was missing. Rayla saying that she just would have assumed that he was skilled enough to come back on his own is such a departure from the cautious nature she's had in previous seasons. This entirely feels manufactured to pad out the season's runtime. Most of the conflicts in this season feel so artificial because the writers inexplicably chose to exclusively use lack of communication and misunderstandings, which makes it feel pointless and frustrating to watch. For example, this season where, for whatever reason, no one feels the need to inform Rex Igneous that the Dragon King is dead. It runs on for far too long before this piece of information is finally shared. Also, let's talk about questionable writing decisions. This season, they seem intent on humanizing Viren, and if that were their goal, they wasted an opportunity for Viren and Soren to speak. In fact, they don't talk to each other at all. Soren and Claudia get a fair amount of screen time to speak with each other, and how Soren is trying to convince Claudia of their failings of their father. And despite that conversation, when Soren and Viren finally meet, we get nothing. Speaking of padding, let's talk about this season's B-plot with the Sun Elves. For better or worse, I have very little to say about the Sun Elf plot. General Amaya stayed with Janai over these years, and the two are to be wed. Now this is all well and good, but it feels insulting that their relationship gets more development this season than Callum and Rayla's, our main characters. Like the rest of the season, this plotline trudges along as well, and is so lazily written as Amaya has almost no reaction to the Architect's actions in this scene, then calling her a villain in the next. I just wish this had more substance. Actually, I could say that about the entirety of season 4. It just feels so lifeless. If they're not a casted character, they basically don't exist. Take this scene where Amaya is ambushed by what was supposed to be a traditional dance ceremony. Why do they say nothing outside of grunts? It's not like they're mute. They could totally say something to explain the situation to her. The only time they talk is to make this joke.
This human she is marrying, she's a beast.
Furthermore, we get minor retcons like how Viren was actually dead for 2 years instead of 2 days between seasons 3 and 4. The most significant retcon that gets completely glossed over is the non-reaction to Callum being able to use primal magic. For 3 seasons, Callum was getting clowned on left and right for trying to do something thought impossible by humans. Now that he's doing it, no one cares. Ezran has this single offhand comment that Callum is the first human to use primal magic in centuries, which that alone is completely different from what we were led to believe, which is that humans can't use primal magic at all, only dark magic. I must ask, what did we wait 3 years for? I have to admit that I am afraid that the next 3 seasons will only lose quality. The longer a show goes on, the more prone they are to make mistakes, and season 4 might just be the beginning. But here's to hoping that season 5 is an improvement. Thanks for watching.